Welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ, our Tuesday nighters. We get together to celebrate Jesus Christ, and tonight we get together, more specifically, get to celebrate our attempt to strategize and work towards unity. The church has called for unity, and I love the fact that our first instinct is to pray about that. Amen, amen, amen. But we also can take steps towards finding unity, certainly in the church, certainly in the general church, definitely in your local church, but also in your relationships. I don't know. I know when I counsel young couples that I'm marrying, I always tell them, they ask me questions about my own marriage, and I always tell them marriage is work. And I'm not certain that everybody agrees with that statement, but I'm absolutely positive about this. I am not changing my viewpoint and my opinion on that. Marriage is work. It is any relationship I've ever engaged in, whether parenting, whether to my parents, to my in-laws, to the congregants, to anybody I connect with in the office, anywhere. Any relationship is work, and to unify and find unity with an individual, let alone an entire office, let alone an entire branch, let alone the entire general church, it requires each one of us taking steps towards unity. We all are accountable. We all own that final status of finding unity. So if I do my part, and I take that first, and if everybody repeats what I'm saying now, we're in good shape. But if everyone believes it's up to me to get there, I think unity is attainable. But as we've said, and we'll review rather than me just carrying on right now, we'll see the ways that happens. So our class has been Stop, Collaborate, Listen. I'm going to take the musical author out of that because we do know this. This is a strategy and has been much longer than that song has been out. And so I don't want to bring lightness into it because this is a serious subject. So I'm just going to focus on our theme. Stop, collaborate, listen. 3-step process for any and all who want to find unity in any significant way. So week one, real quick review. Week one, we instituted unity as our attainable goal. We are realistic about that, but we remain hopeful. Unity is unquestionably, at least in my mind, and I think we all agreed, impossible without the influence of God. Week two, we exposed the details in man's consistency, and his consistency is disunity. Most of us, if not every single one of us, experience more failure than success in attempting to unify. And I think one of the reasons is easily found in the fact that we find quickly our differences rather than searching for our similarities. We find separation rather than togetherness. It's almost just how we're built. Week three, we investigated the why. What we discovered is, or what we reaffirmed maybe and confirmed is, man as a beast is selfish. We identified the single cause of all disunity, me-centered mindset. And it's how we're built. Have I ever mentioned that man is built to fail? Oh, maybe I have. But certainly, again, intended to succeed. And so that's why God's infusion, his inclusion, will always end up in success. And so we believe unity is possible under the influence of God. It took us 3 weeks. Week one, week two, week three. It took us 3 weeks of prepping in review of man's lacking, his deficiency in finding unity, to help us to finally arrive at a point where I believe we were finally ready to consider real solutions. I heard no arguments, I heard no resistance, so we embraced this 3-step process, or at least I've made myself to believe that. So we believe this process will help us attain, help us maintain, and help us sustain unity. Stop, collaborate, listen. Week 4, we began the 3-step process. Step 1, stop. Stop is the absolutely necessary first step. Stop swirling, stop failing, stop doing. Stop is also the absolute ironic first step, because we have to stop in order to start, or maybe better said, restart. Start from the stop. We discussed at length what happens in the calmness of that stop. After attaining or reaching that necessary state of mind, state of spirit, state of soul, we start calming, we start meditating, we start regrouping, we start refocusing, we start recovering, we start with God. Then we move on to others. We restart through this peaceful tranquility. We start addressing what truly ails men and women everywhere. And where it starts is where the problem is, me. So we start valuing self. We start depending upon God, truly depending upon God. And someone may push against that. And I would just counter them, why have we not found unity? If it's not you, then it must be me. And so someone, and I believe it's everyone, has to start depending on God. Start truly, fully depending upon him. Start utilizing team. In other words, start utilizing others. Everyone come to the table. Start taking real steps towards genuine, sustainable unity. Then we shifted to step 2 in week 5, collaborate. Collaborate must follow stop, because the calm of the stop prepares our spirits. Collaborate follows stop to create a mindset of humility. Remember, Jesus led by example in all that he did, not because he needed to, because we need to. But there's evidence that he did that also for success. So leading by example, he collaborated with his Father. And he did that after 40 days and 40 nights of fasting and praying. A fabulous example of the stop. Collaborate begins by confessing that self can't continue solo. Collaborate embraces the brokenness, and that's me. And the fix, and that's team. God first, others afterwards. Collaborate may seem oddly placed as the second step. How could collaborate come before listen? Collaborate seemed like the odd, strange placement to come second, but it's not. It's perfection. Collaborate is a dynamic verb. It's critical to the entire process. So don't see it only placed number 2, but certainly in order, stop and then collaborate. But that first collaboration is as Jesus did with God. Collaborate follows stop, but remains engaged always after the stop. Understand that. We stop and then we go to step 2, and step 2 never ends. Collaborate inspires the teamwork with God. Collaborate inspires the teamwork with others. Collaborate defines the teamwork in moving forward. Attains, maintains, sustains. Collaborate depends upon which teammate to listen. It depends upon which teammate, and that each teammate and that all teammates must continue to listen. So this week, week 3 is listen. The 3 steps again: stop, collaborate, listen. 1, 2, 3. Let's utilize this final session tonight on unity by studying listen, deep diving into listen. Like collaborate, this third step is perpetual, never to be abandoned again once we adopt it into our 3-step process for unity. Understanding, stop is one step that kicks everything off. Collaborate is that next step, but we never stop collaborating. Listen is that 3rd step, but we never stop listening. So, Sister Patty, yes, listen seems to come before collaborate, but it is a function of. Collaborate and listen both remain. Collaborate and listen both allow unity to go forward and maintain. All right, let's do a little example. It seems every home experiences this mid-argument dialogue. You're not listening to me. I heard you. My question to you is, do you find anything wrong with this? You're not listening to me. I heard you. I don't have the same enthusiasm at the 2 picture show, but you get the picture. This back and forth reminds me of my own personal relationship, watch this, with magicians. I watch these individuals intently, inquisitively, and I even lean in closer to watch them closely, really examine everything they do. My results expose that I just don't see their actions well. I'm tricked every single time. I've assessed, and I've assessed accurately, as a critique of my failing efforts to catch what magicians do, to do what magicians do, to trick me. My conclusion is this: watch is to see, as hear is to listen. I won't leave you hanging there. We're going to move forward. Watch is to see, as hear is to listen. Just because we watch doesn't mean we see. Just because we hear doesn't mean we listen. More examples? Just because we read doesn't mean we comprehend. Just because we comprehend doesn't mean we apply what it is we understand. Okay. Now that you have those examples, now that I hope I have you in the right spirit and leaning in with the subject, we're going to do a quick study on listen. Next couple slides. Hear this now, listen to this now as it relates to hear. The hearing is an inborn ability. Does my baby hear? Listening is a learned skill. Never do we ask, is the baby listening? Does our baby hear? They do sounds. Does the baby react to those sounds? Sounds. Does the baby react? Hearing is the primary, the first and foremost stage of interpreting sounds, which is a continuous natural process. Hearing is a continuous natural process. Listening is temporary. It's impossible to continuously pay attention for long time periods, unless we're in a capsule, unless we're captured. And even then, I'm going to find something that steals my attention no matter what the sterile places that I'm in. I'm still going to find something to take my attention away. So listening is temporary. Hearing is continuous. Consider this. You give your undivided attention to the sounds from the TV, meaning you're watching a TV show, and you follow easily as you pay attention. Someone walks in, interrupts you with a question. The sounds from that television are still entering your ears the entire time, but your attention is compromised. Hearing versus listening. Hearing does not require focus. Listening requires undeterred focus. A lot of people argue about being able to multitask. There are many, maybe even most, who believe man cannot multitask, not truly and successfully and accurately multitask. Hearing is a passive bodily process. Doesn't involve use of the brain. We know the brain is central, but it doesn't involve the full utilization of the brain. Listening is an active mental process, utilizing the brain, running everything through the brain to understand what is meant by the words and the sentences being processed. Consider this. Standing on a busy street corner as multiple sounds assault your ears, creating nothing but confusion in all that sound. Remember watching my favorite musical for the longest time, Godspell, and it begins with the sounds of the city. And then this is a modern take on the walk of Jesus Christ. All the sounds of the city, just this noise, and then he walks through and everything silences. And then at the end, he walks back into the city and the sounds begin again. Standing on a busy street corner as multiple sounds attack and assault your hearing, creating nothing but confusion. You step out or you step into an office, no longer assaulted by the sounds, and you meet a receptionist in the quiet of this office, and they calmly welcome you, and you easily understand everything in that office. Hearing versus listening. Hearing is physiological, utilizing one of the physical senses provided to living organisms. Listening is a psychological act. This requires our making a conscious effort. One really requires work. One is voluntary, one is involuntary, one is voluntary. Hearing is the ability to perceive sounds received through vibrations entering the ears. We know about the hairs inside and the wiggling. Hearing is the ability to perceive sounds through vibrations. Listening is consciously analyzing and recognizing those sounds received through the ears. Consider this. You're at a zoo, standing face to face with any animal. I picked a hippopotamus. And as you're standing eye to eye with this hippopotamus, someone beside you makes a comment. Both heads turn, yours and the hippopotamus's. You and the hippo heard. You and the hippo react to that sound, but only you understands what was said. Hearing versus listening. Our theme tonight is listening. Why aren't you listening? I heard you. Listening versus hearing. Hearing involves receipt of the message through our ears. Listening encompasses interpreting that message received. Hearing, we are not aware of the sounds we receive. Listening, we are completely aware to whatever we're hearing. If it's someone speaking, to what they're saying. Consider you encounter an unfamiliar sound. You receive it, but you don't comprehend. Conversely, you encounter a very familiar sound. You receive it and clearly understand it. You heard both. You're only able to listen to one. Hearing involves the use of only one sense, ears. In contrast, listening involves the use of more than one sense, eyes. Because when I hear something, I go back to something I've seen before, touch. When I hear something, I might hear the rustling of the leaves, and I remember touching the leaves, and it goes on and on. All the senses come alive when we listen, so that we might understand with more fullness. Hearing, one sense. Listening, multiple senses. Hearing, we're neither aware nor have any control over the sounds we hear. Listening, we're aware of the sound, so we listen intently in order to in order to acquire knowledge, acknowledge, and receive that information. Consider, we hear two different people speaking two different languages. Only one is familiar. We hear both sounds, but only one is received through understanding. Only one we truly listen to. Imagine if your hearing was new to the jungle, and you walk into the jungle and you hear a bird and you've never heard it before. All you're doing is hearing. Can't listen because you've never been there before. And you don't know what that sound is. Maybe it frightens you. And then you hear a squirrel. You don't know that sound. And all of a sudden you become immune to sounds. And then you hear a lion roar. Never heard that sound. Must be just like the bird and the squirrel. Next scene, you've been eaten by the lion, because all you did was hear those sounds. You weren't able to listen because there was no interpretation. They were all brand new sounds. Hope you're understanding the difference. Every priority list for healthy relationships include good communication skills. Listening. It's impossible to listen unless one fully focuses on others. Remember what we identified as the problem earlier, week 2. We probably restated it week 3, probably revisited week 4. It's me, 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 me. It's impossible to listen unless one fully focuses on others, so that we understand others exist just outside of me. All of us are your others. All of you are my others. Where is my focus? Out here or in here? Others in our study begin with God and go on to include all people. Remember in the stop. Remember while we're in the stop, we focus on self. We find ourselves in that stop, in that calm. Then we go to the most critical next step. We focus on God. Then when we're at that place where we found the center between the two, then we take in others. Others begin with God and continue with all people around us. All people is an inclusive term. Too often, all people becomes exclusive. All people except those people. All people except that culture. All people except this color. All people except that religion. All people is an inclusive phrase. 6 bad communications habits, and then how to correct them. You won't be surprised what I lifted from this article as the source of all 6 bad communication habits. Number 1, attitude reflects an I'm right, others are wrong approach. We've met that person. Maybe we've been that person at some point in our life. I'm right, others are wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. That approach will never relate and equate to good communication skills. Number 2, conversation hijacking. You ever hear someone who says, oh, I've been so sick, and someone replies, yeah, I've been sick too. I had this scratchy throat and then it went to my head. I've had a headache all week. I just haven't been able to collect myself. The person who began the conversation is lost. They're completely forgotten. I have completely hijacked their pain and I've taken the whole conversation to me. Conversation hijackers. Number 3, bad communication habits. Non-stop talking, even to the point of ranting. Entire monologues delivered as one run-on sentence. I often say, no periods, just commas. It just goes on and on and on and on. I know those who are on Tuesday nights especially think, I'm that guy somewhere else, but I can't tell you the amount of conversations I get, and Candace says it to me all the time when people call and often need to talk. I don't know that I get 7 words in because I don't need to get 7 words in. I'm just there to hear. I'm just there to console. So I'm really not that ranter at all, but it's necessary now because I'm teaching. Non-stop talking, non-stop ranting. As we go through these, I'm right, everybody else is wrong. Conversation hijacking. Enough about your sickness. Wait till you hear about mine. Non-stop ranting. What does that make the other person experience? When they're engaged in a conversation with any one of these 3 types of people, what is the other person feeling? Number 4, interrupting or talking over those they're engaged with. It exhibits, whether it's meant or not, it exhibits disrespect and disinterest and disregard for that matter. Now, this is a stage of life Candace and I are both in where we find ourselves interrupting at times. And we've both confessed the reason is also the age factor. We get into a panic that Candace may say something that triggers a thought in my mind, or I may say something that triggers a thought in her mind, and we can't hold it for 20 more seconds, and we burst in and say something. It's because we think we're going to forget what we're talking about. We have made a pact not to do that anymore, even though it feels necessary at this stage. We realize what it's doing to the other person, how it's making them feel disrespected. Not the intention, but it's the result. Number 4, interrupting or talking over others. Number 5, distracted with self-talk, mental self-talk, planning one's response. Don't know if you all remember, but Brother Nick Yepko sent a chat to us while we were talking about this behavior. And he said, it's not listening, it's just waiting to talk. You almost are, come on, get to the end of the sentence. And then we burst in. We haven't really heard anything for the last 2 minutes. We're so set on what we need to say. Distracted. You can tell when you're talking to someone, they've faded out on you. They're distracted with their own self-talk, waiting to respond. Number 6, biases and filters. Hear only what the individual wants to hear. Malcolm Gladwell, wonderful author, if you don't read him, Malcolm Gladwell has termed this confirmation bias. What that means is you dissect from a conversation what you want from that. You might selectively pick a sentence or a phrase and pull that out, and that confirms everything you believe, missing everything else around it. Or you only listen to people who speak the things you want to hear. Confirmation bias, biases and filters, hear only what we want to hear. All 6 of these bad communication habits have a powerful impact, a powerfully negative impact on the person we're communicating with or the people we're communicating with. Tears down collaboration, tears down teamwork, tears down relationships, tears down listening skills. Number last, it's just an asterisk because I promised that we would talk about how to correct these. This is the paragraph I promised. This is the one I lifted from this article that comes to the same conclusion we came to in week 2. The common factor in all 6 bad communication habits is a focus on me, whomever that is. Whoever it is in that conversation doing any one of these 6, all of them have the same source of sin, me. Me-centered mindset. This involves internal attitude that all conversations come back to self, come back to my own need, whomever that person is. This undermines their effectiveness as a listener. And remember, the goal of listening is to understand the other person. Understand what they're communicating, understand what they're saying, understand what they mean to be communicating from their perspective. But if I'm only focused on mine, I'm not a good listener, and I'm not listening. You're not listening to what I said. I heard you. Hearing is not listening, and listening certainly is not hearing. Remember the scripture we brought in, I think on week 1, maybe week 2. Let's end where we began, because to me, it's the perfect example. 1.5 months ago, when this session began, we started with this from 3rd Nephi. The 12 disciples who were called to lead the church in the Americas were going out successfully, growing the church, successfully bringing Jesus Christ to others, and they stumbled on a small issue. Now, I'll tell it to you, but it's not important. The issue is unimportant. The solution is critical. But they stumbled on an issue. The issue is, what do we call the church? Again, that's the least important factor to all of this. It's what they did and how they handled that and the steps they took. Came to pass that the disciples were gathered together and were united in mighty prayer and fasting. Jesus again showed himself unto them. The resurrected Jesus, who had spent time with them months before, came back when they called on him. in resurrected form as a vision came back to them. Jesus again showed himself unto them, for they were praying unto the Father in his name. And Jesus came and stood in the midst of them and said, what will ye that I should give unto you? I'm not going to spend a lot of time telling you this, but I want to remind you, perfection in their fasting and praying. They weren't specific to why they were praying. They weren't specific in their fasting and praying. They were just purifying themselves that they might be worthy for the Lord to come into their presence. So that when he came there, he said, now let me address your situation. Didn't say it that way. He said, what is it you want from me? What is it you want me to tell you? Because they hadn't prayed specifically. They just were fasting and praying to draw closer to the Lord. Perfection. I want you to think about what I just told you. They had a situation. They got together, unified, fasted and prayed, called on the Lord, and the Lord came to them and asked them what it is they wanted. Watch this. The disciples prepared themselves, stop, to listen to Jesus. Jesus came into their presence. The disciples collaborated. Then Jesus came in to listen to the disciples. They called on him that they might listen to him. He came and asked them so that he might listen to their request. Stop. All of them collaborated. All of them listened. Perfection. Let's review and summarize in conclusion of these 6 weeks together. Stop addresses our need to improve. Stop addresses our need to improve self. Stop addresses our need to help others improve. Stop is meditative. It begins in meditation. Stop. Stop helps cultivate mindfulness. Stop. Stop provides clarity. Stop. That clarity is developed through insightfulness. Stop. Stop gives pause to wrong behavior. Stop. Stop helps us to advance. Stop. What we're stopping is what we are doing wrong. Stop. Stop provides time to change direction from failure to success. 180 degrees to change direction. Starts with stop. Stop readies us for the other two crucial steps in order that we might all attain, maintain, and sustain unity. Collaborate is only possible after the cleansing of the stop. We leave from that stop. That stop may be a long time period. It's a time to collect ourselves. Collaborate only takes place after the cleansing of stop. Collaborate requires hearts and minds given to God first. Collaborate demands spirits given to others before myself. Collaborate is attained and maintained through humility and love. Collaborate is founded upon and forwarded through listening. Not hearing, listening. Collaborate readies us to listen and helps us to sustain unity. Listen provides the means for one to truly collaborate. Listen opens hearts, listen opens minds to God's voice, to God's guidance, to God's direction. Listen provides the valued information shared from others. Listen is attained, listen is maintained through generous love, always through love. Listen results from a desire to collaborate with God. Listen results from a desire to collaborate with others. I want to say finally at the end of that, because that doesn't come easy. It might be easily, I think is the way it's said. It doesn't come easily. A willingness to collaborate is a huge step forward, followed by, or followed after stop. And then we're ready to collaborate. And if we're ready to collaborate, we're ready to listen. Stop, collaborate, listen. These are the 3 steps, and the only 3 steps necessary to attain, to maintain, to sustain unity. May the Lord bless each one of you in your desire to find unity, whether that be with the entire general church, whether that be with your branch, whether that be in your personal relationships, wherever that might be. May he bless you in your desire to find humility at such a level that you're ready to unify. May God bless each one of you.